Second video, the intention here is to explain the why of what I'm doing. Just a few weeks into what's going on in Ukraine, I saw a piece on the BBC News website about a town called Przemyśl. In just 2 or 3 days, this town of 60,000 people, just inside Poland from the border with Ukraine, had received something in the order of 180,000 refugees. That's a huge number of people, 3 times the population of that small town. And of course, they were doing all they could to try and welcome and host and care for these people suffering all kinds of trauma, a lot of them having escaped from where the fighting was most immediate and at its worst, places that had been bombed already. And as I watched, I thought, what can I do? I think we all, when we see things, think, what can I do? And a lot of the time we feel that there's nothing we can do. We might write a letter to an MP, we might give some money, we might campaign, various measures. And none of those are wrong. In fact, all of those are brilliant. And it's wonderful that we have the privilege of responding in so many different ways. But in the peculiarity of my circumstances, I thought, well, in some way, maybe I should go. Now, the way that my mind works is I thought, do I travel to Ukraine and pick up a gun? And I very quickly dismissed that. It wouldn't be wise, it wouldn't be sensible, and I'm not sure I'd be any help to anyone. The last thing any Ukrainian trying to fight the Russians needs is some cumbersome, not very capable Englishman stood next to him, scared out of his head, wondering what he's doing and not able to contribute much. So then I thought, well, how else do I respond in a way that's going to be meaningful on the front line? And the thing that hit me pretty immediately was this, that many of the men who are there fighting are, just like me, husbands and fathers. They have wives and children, and they love them. And there is nothing that they wouldn't give, even their own lives, for the sake of their women and children. A few years ago, in the August of 2018, I had the privilege of standing in the war cemetery in Bayeux in France. And alongside me, I had my son, Elijah, now 18 and a half at the time. What was he, 15, 16, 15? And Gideon, our younger son, our third child. He must have been 9, something like that. 8 years old, going on 9. And it was the most moving thing to read the graves of the soldiers who'd been buried in that World War II cemetery in Bayeux, to find the names of boys, young men only a year older than Elijah, some of them just 16 years of age. Maybe many of them would have been 15, just like Elijah. And then to read the names of others, some of them maybe the fathers of those same boys. Man and boy had gone to war. And I've always said to my boys, to Elijah and Gideon, that it's one of the peculiar responsibilities of a man to stand up, to give himself selflessly for his wife and his children, indeed for the women, for the vulnerable, for the elderly around them. That is a peculiar responsibility of a man. I'm not going to get into a discussion about whether or not that fits with contemporary mores. I'm sorry, that's how I feel, and no, I'm not sorry. That is how I feel. And I'm sure a lot of people watching this would think similarly. So that was why I thought about going to war in Ukraine, and I just can't. It's the wrong thing to do, and yeah. But what I can do as a husband and father is say there are husbands and fathers, 44-year-old men with 4 children, just like me, who are desperately in love with their wives, who would stop at nothing to fulfill their marriage vows till death us do part, to express their love for their wife. There is no one they would give themselves for in quite the same way, and indeed by extension for their children. And I thought, well, if I was there on the front line in Ukraine, I would be more worried about the safety and well-being of my wife and children, who I had sent out of the country in hopes that they would then be safe. I'd be more worried about them than I would about the Russians that I was shooting at and who were shooting at me. And so I thought, well, how do I honour those men? How do I value those men? How do I serve and respect those men? And I thought, well, if I was one of them, I would be thrilled to know that a good, decent, honourable man, out of a desire to honour and respect me, had taken steps, given of himself, in order to ensure that my wife and children were safe, were cared for, were provided for. And so I thought, well, I need to go. And I need to find a wife and children who belong to somebody else, and I need to honour that man by taking them somewhere safe. And it's a crazy idea, and I dismissed it, but it stuck in my head. And so I thought about it, and I prayed about it. And in the next few videos, I'm going to tell you what happened. But in short, that's what I'm going to be doing in just over a week's time. Travelling to Przemyśl in Poland to collect a family of refugees from Ukraine and to take them to somewhere where they'll be safe and cared for and provided for.